So today, what we're going to be talking about is just categories and keywords. And I'm going to do my best to spell out the differences between the two because I often get questions, as I'm assuming maybe you all think about this as well, where categories and keywords look really similar and kind of do similar things. There's some subtle differences between them, and so we'll explore that today. Before I do that, I kind of want to get a feel for how many people are familiar with categories and keywords. And I guess I'll just simple yes or no. If you've used them, a lot, that's great. That's kind of where I'm curious about. If you haven't, that's okay too. I'm just want to get a general understanding of where people's familiarity lies in regards to this workshop. So familiar or unfamiliar, I think is helpful. Yeah, in general, categories and keywords are use categories, not keywords. Okay, cool. Well, Chuck, you'll get a lot of benefit out of this. Sounds like John, you're familiar with them as well. Categories and keywords are kind of the backbone of ACDSee as a product. So ACDSee vaguely, okay, Alan, you'll learn lots today. That'll be helpful. Categories and keywords are yeah, like I said, the backbone of ACDSee in the sense that before ACDSee had even a developer or any real editing capabilities, it was essentially a file management tool dedicated towards photographers, and that has been maintained. When it comes to ACDSee, I believe even like Alec has talked about this too in his workshops in regards to when he did more specific workshops in regards to the software. But ACDSee is really good at that. It's like a real strength of the software is that you can can categorize and catalog your images in really effective ways. And I guess what I mean by cataloging is just sorting them. When I say catalog, there's a sort of a term, a technical term in ACDSee, but there's more of a general term. And I think what I mean by doing that is sorting your images. And something to sort of understand right from the get-go before we talk about any of these tools more particularly, I want to sort of assert right now something that is sort of a must understand about the way that ACDSee catalogs images. For those of you who have worked in Lightroom or other softwares where there's pretty lengthy import times in regards to sort of, moving and engaging with your images, ACDSee doesn't have that import time. It kind of works directly off of your hard drive. And so what I mean by that is here, I'll open up a folder to just give you an idea. Let's just go quickly into my pictures folder here, and I'll just find the same birds folder. Or actually, I think this is, I'm currently on a selection, but so right now I've navigated to a folder in my, on my hard drive. And so if I go to my folders and I go to pictures and I go to my, my birds folder here, you'll see that all of these images represent the ones that I'm seeing here. And before you ask, yes, I know there's whales and bears in here. That's part of what we're going to be talking about today. So ultimately these images are exactly what we're seeing here. I think this one is organized differently. It's organized alphabetically, and this one is organized, I think, chronologically. So you're seeing the same content. So in ACDSee, when you're cataloging a file, meaning when you're adding, metadata to your file that constitutes the keywords and the categories, essentially when you're in ACDSee, you're adding information to your files. ACDSee goes through the process of adding keywords to images, and that is then stored in something called a database, right? So when we go and we add keywords to our image, is categories to our images. When we go and we add ratings, like you see up here, and labels, like you see here, that all constitutes metadata. And that metadata is proprietary to ACDSee. And what I mean by that is it's kind of managed and organized and understood by ACDC alone. Does that make sense? First and foremost, that like when we go to add metadata, we're adding information that is sort of understood by ACDC. There's different types of metadata. So the metadata that ACDC understands is this. Actually, it's really helpful. I'm just going to open up our help contents window and we'll just look up the database. So what I have here is a list of the things that are stored in the database. And you'll see that a lot of these are metadata, right? So we have categories. This is the categories that you make in ACDC that we're going to be talking about today, and keywords. There's also something called notes. There's color labels, authors, dates, ratings, captions, and face data. So all of these things, notably categories and keywords, are stored within the database when we add this content to our images. So this this information is sort of added to your current database that you have. A database is created upon your installation of ACDC, so you already have one while you're using ACDC. There's no need to sort of have to create a new one. And one of the other things that's added to the database that's probably the most noteworthy and the most obvious are the thumbnails you see when you're browsing in manage mode. So all these little pictures you see here are then added to that database. So you have all this content. So where I'm getting to this is why ACDC is so fast as a database manager, and one of the reasons why it is so relevant is because we are not, when we're cataloging our images, when we're adding keywords, when we're adding ratings, etc., labels, whatever, face data, when we go to search for this content, for example, if I go to the catalog window that's up at the top left-hand corner here, and just broadly keep in mind that this left-hand panel in manage mode is for searching, and this left-hand panel here, the properties panel on the right hand, is for applying category or applying metadata. So for adding information or cataloging information, and then for searching for it right here. If I go to say something as simple as a keyword, and let's just go to the bird keyword here. Well, it's going to open up all of these images here. But the thing about this is these images may correspond to different locations on my hard drive. Meaning that these images aren't necessarily from, in this case, the folder that I was looking at earlier with all my birds in it. These are images that just contain that keyword or category. And this is probably best understood if we navigate to something like labels, where here I'll add a label, a red label to these herons here. So they now have a red label. And you'll see that when I click on the red icon, a bunch of images come up, including the images of the herons that I had. So these landscape photos are in a different folder to that of my herons that you see here. But cataloging these images allows me to essentially pull up and display all of the images that contain that property, in this case, that metadata, and visualize them at the same time. So they're sort of cataloged in this way, corresponding to the content that we're adding. So this might seem simple in that, oh, okay, so I know that they're not necessarily moving from their original location, but I'm being displayed, all these images with this corresponding characteristic. However, this is an extremely powerful tool, and because this enables us to create thousands of folders with different images, but as long as I'm going throughout the process of cataloging my images, I'm navigating through those folders and saying, hey, what are the keywords that I want for this folder? Or what are the labels or the ratings that I have for these images? Even the example of ratings, for example, is like, okay, I really love this image. I'm going to say I'll rate it 5 stars or give it a rating of 5, right? So if I did something like that, right? Well, that rating is now something that I've added to that image in a corresponding folder. And so when I go to say, hey, I want to make a portfolio with all of the images that I thought were best represented my skills, I would navigate simply to my ratings catalog window here, click on 5, and there it is. So, here are all these images that I've rated 5. I mean, many of these images are, they're not excellent images or whatever, but just from example perspective, I was able to bring all these images up, and they're in very different locations. We can see that they're in different locations. So if I go to my image here, I click on my image, and then I click on the metadata tab. The file tab. We can see where these images are located. So I have a landscape image here. If I look under located in, it's in my C drive. That's pretty standard. In users folder, admin pictures. Okay, so that's just kind of the classic default location. And then they're in my pictures folder, and then they're in looks like a folder called release photos. So we use these at some point for a release. And then they're in a landscape folder. Whereas if I look at a different image here, say this the Statue of Liberty image, it's actually in the same folder. But if I look at this image, for example, it's in a folder called people. So these images all have different locations, but they're being essentially gathered together and visualized at the same time for me. Okay, so that sort of represents broadly how metadata is important and why cataloging our images is so powerful in ACDSee. Let's kind of draw this back and start talking about categories and keywords again. First and foremost, does that make sense to everyone? I'm not sure. To the extent that people have probably understood metadata and managing and edit mode, I don't know if that's new to anyone, but if that is new to you, that sort of gives a rough kind of breakdown of why adding metadata is such a sort of powerful tool in ACDSee. Is because it allows us to do something like catalog our images in such a way and bring them up dependent on characteristics. Okay, so categories and keywords. So let's see here. I have this. Let's go back to a folder here. So categories and keywords are let's just go into a landscape folder for now. Here's a bunch of landscape images. So when we're adding here, let's change the view mode too. Let's go to just a film strip view. That's probably a bit more helpful that we get a sort of a sense for what we're looking at. So I mentioned earlier that on the left here is a way to navigate to images. So you're seeing me navigate actually to my folder structure by using the folders tab. And you've also seen me use the catalog panel by sort of using this to bring up either a rating or a label or a keyword, that sort of thing. These are the two that I sort of use the most. So the folder structure literally just mimics that of your folders on your hard drive. And the catalog is using that proprietary metadata that we've then added using ACDSee's database to search for images. Notably, you should see that there's the categories, keywords panels on the left here. So categories up at the top is how we would search for an added category. Keywords is how we would search for an added keyword. And then finally, AI keywords is a way to search for images that contain a characteristic that ACDSee has determined for you. One of the things that's probably worth understanding is that AI keywords are generated automatically. So you don't actually interact with this window. You can do things with it, but it is generated for you. Also to be understood about this is these automatically generated keywords are generated on browsing to an image. So one of the aspects of keywords that is actually functionally different from categories is that it contains an AI component. So there's these two methods of keywords in ACDC. So manual keywords are the ones that you've added yourself by hand. So you've gone in and you've created keyword hierarchies, which we'll discuss in a moment. And you've added keywords that you want to your images. And they're added to this like quite a large list of keywords here. And you can see that some of these keywords have they themselves have hierarchies. So for example, the animal hierarchy that I was using to look at those birds previously, it's located right here. So you can see that animal has two sub keywords within it. The first one is mammal, and the second one here is bird. And then within bird, there's actually three sub keywords there. So there's eagle, heron, and toucan. And from within eagle, there's even further sub keywords. So one of the things to understand about keywords and actually categories is that they can be made hierarchical. So we'll showcase how to do that in a moment, but that these have a series that exists beneath it. So this hierarchy represents at the very top. Okay, so animal, that's a pretty broad hierarchy. And then I have two sub hierarchies here. I have bird and mammal, which makes sense. One type of animal is a mammal and one type of animal is a bird. So in here, I have those two qualities. Mammal itself doesn't actually have any sub keywords within it, but bird does. So bird has eagles, herons, and toucans. And then underneath those, there's further sub keywords based on the type of toucans that they are. So for eagle, there's bald and gold. For heron, there's blue and there's white. And for toucan, there's arakaris, and it looks like just regular. So that's manual keywords. So manual keywords, like I said, are ones that I've added personally. I've gone in and I've said, hey, I want there to be an animal, a major hierarchy animal keyword that I can add to my images. And then from within that, I want to make a distinction between birds and mammals, etc. There's all sorts of other keywords here based on other stuff that I'd done over the last couple of years. They've just added to it, right? Some of these also have sub keywords as well, like the nature one. Maybe the food does. It looks like it does right there. Underneath that is AI keywords. Like I mentioned, these are automatically generated by ACDSee. This is predicated on browsing. So you're probably unfamiliar with browsing. It's something that I had to learn within the last couple of years of using the software when AI keywords were sort of introduced. So what browsing is let's navigate back to the folders window here. So when we navigate to a folder for the first time, and if let's say I've never navigated to it before in ACDSee, when I do that, basically what I'm doing is I'm browsing. So if I was to say go into this, let's see here, let's just go into this. Let's go into this January 19th folder. So there's like only a few images in this folder. But if I had never browsed to this folder before, ACDSee would take a moment to generate a thumbnail for me. When ACDSee generates that thumbnail, that is when AI is operating and adding AI keywords to that image. Let's click on an image, for example, and let's go to the AI keywords panel. So AI keywords has added some keywords to this image. The three that we can see here are person and clothing. And then within clothing, there's a sub keyword of dress. So this process was based on browsing. So I never added this information. This was added by ACDSee. Versus this image of a bird here, it literally is just a bird. It's been added as a bird here. One of the things to note about AI keywords is that there's these plus icons here to the right of them. These plus icons dictate which keyword I have allowed, or AI keyword rather, I have allowed to be represented in my manual keywords here. So looking at my AI keywords here, I have a check mark next to clothing. What this means is that I've I've said, oh, actually, okay, I like this keyword, and I know this was automatically generated by AI, but I'd actually like to move it into my general keywords panel. So with that checked, that is why I can see these listed underneath. So clothing was added, predicated on me liking that AI keyword. Let's see if there's another example. There might not be in this folder, but we can probably add one. Oh, so I don't have any parrots within animal and bird, so we can go through the process of adding those. One of the things to note is that if I'm adding a keyword using AI keywords, I'm going to click on it. So there it is. And then we have bird and parrot. If I go back to my keywords panel here, I have animal, bird, and now parrot is represented in that hierarchy where it previously wasn't. Can everyone see that? This is why AI keywords is actually really powerful and in a way quite different than the way we operate with categories. Because with AI keywords, I can use ACDSee's generated keywords to start my process. Whereas with categories, we can't. So what I've done here is I've essentially told this particular parrot image to be put underneath animal, bird, and parrot. And then that puts it inside the corresponding keyword. If there is a keyword with that name, it'll place it within it. And if there isn't, it'll generate a new one for us. Let's take another example here. Let's go back to AI keywords. So this image has a ton of AI keywords. So it has some major ones here. It has architecture and vehicle as broad keywords. And then within architecture, it has building and houses. And within vehicle, it has boat. So what we'll do is we'll actually add architecture and vehicle here. So I'm going to add vehicle boat. And then I'm going to add architecture building house. And so from here, if I was to look at architecture, you can see that architecture is checked. That means that this image has an architecture keyword because it's blue here. If I click on that, oh, looks like it's checked under building and it's checked under house. So this image now has a manual keyword predicated on the AI keyword that I liked right there, and also a vehicle. When I'm looking at my images using the keyword panel, when it appears blue and filled here, that indicates to me that this image that I have selected here, this 005 image of this sort of coastal cityscape, this blue check mark indicates that this has been added, and it is sort of in this image that I'm looking at. So if I was to move back to the parrot, you'll see that these will become unchecked, right? Yeah, they're unchecked because this image does not contain this information. The plus buttons just indicate to me that these keywords that I have here, they have sub keywords within them. So the plus button indicates the sub keywords, but the check indicates currently selected keywords that would be represented in this image. So looking back at AI keywords, this is a fast way to take a keyword that has been automatically generated by AI, something that we can already search, mind you. So looking at animal under AI keywords, I can click on animal, brings up all the animals that ACDSee has found. And then it has all these different sort of keywords that it's created, like bird, for example. I can already search these, right? But one of the benefits of this is now I can move these, if I like these keywords, into my own keyword panel, right? Which in this case, this is where the curatory aspect of ACDSee sort of exists, where I get the ability to add my own keywords in the own structure that I want. And that looks like so many different things. So first and foremost, major distinction between categories and keywords is that keywords can be developed using AI rather than just manually. So let's look at what it looks like to create a brand new keyword, just to illustrate that, because we've never done that before. Keywords can be created in a couple different ways. First and foremost, you can just right click on the keyword panel right here and just add new keyword. And then if you've selected a keyword itself, you can create a sub keyword within the current selection. So within bird, I can add a new keyword, for example, waterfowl, and it would add it underneath my bird section here. And we'll just see that happen right now. So I've added a new keyword. Note that just because I've added a keyword doesn't mean that anything has that corresponding keyword. The other thing I can do is I can click new keyword by right clicking, and I can add a top level keyword. So that would be the equivalent of this keyword here that says animal. Let's add a new one. Let's add, I don't know, just add space travel. And it would be added here, and it's visible somewhere around here. Let's see, space travel. There it is. So that would be adding a single keyword and be adding a single sub keyword. What you can also do is you can create sets. Keyword sets are useful, especially when assigning keywords, in that if I clicked on an image, I can assign a keyword to an image really quickly using these buttons that appear here. I can create a set by navigating to the keyword panel, and I could just go on and click something like new keyword sets. So here it gives me the ability to add a keyword set with a corresponding number of rows and columns. So let's say I like the 3 column setup, but I want to add a bunch more rows. I can do that. So what this might look like is I might go, okay, well, I want to add key. Let me think what would be a good new hierarchy here. We could add a keyword set about like interior design or something like that, right? So we could go in and we could add a keyword set called let's do it this way. Let's add a keyword here. I add a keyword and I'll just say create a new top level keyword, and I'll call it interior design. And I'll click OK. So let's say I take a lot of photos of like clients' houses or something like that. And so I want to create a series of keywords based on some sort of quality. In this case, I like the design of these people's houses, and I want to sort of categorize them by a design type, a style. Okay, so now I have a master keyword here. Now we can go in and we can add a set of keywords. So I'll add this new quick keyword set. And there's this function down at the bottom here, which allows me to add sub keywords as from a set within this column function here. So how this works, this would be best understood probably with an animal at this point, rather than in the interior design, just to understand this. But how it would work to add a sub keyword is I would add my my master keyword, say my master keyword is animal, and then I would add a vertical dash. So for those who haven't seen a vertical dash, it's the one that's underneath the backspace. It's a shift click and it exists underneath your backspace button, and it just looks like that. So I'd add animal, vertical space, bird, and then I would add, say, like, I don't know, we added waterfowl earlier. Let's add a flightless. So what this would do is it would add a keyword, and then it would place it within this these sub keyword sets. So animal wouldn't be created for us because it already exists. It would be placed under bird, and then it would add a new sub keyword that's called flightless. Now, let's try the interior design one. So we said interior design, then let's add something like, let's say we're gonna add some sub keywords underneath interior design. Let's say what would be the early 20th century. So that's just, I don't actually know much about interior design, but we're going to add a bunch of add a bunch of columns here. So then we say early 20th century, let's say mid-century. And let's add a third one. Let's add, I don't know, contemporary. So what I've done here is I would fill out more columns here, obviously. But thank you, by the way, Alan, for converting that. So what I have here is I have a keyword that I've already created called interior design. And then underneath of it, what I'm essentially doing using this quick keyword sets is I'm adding three sub keywords. So it's going to give me the opportunity to save this. So let's call it what it is. Let's call it interior design. And then what this enables me to do is to continue to add to this in the future. So I'll click on OK. And then I'll click OK. And now I have three new keywords, right? For interior design. So if I was to go to some images here, let's navigate to, I don't think I have any interior images. So let's just go to a Tiffany City photos here. Well, I suppose it doesn't matter. Let's take some photos and show what I mean. So I have let's take these three images as an example. So I have these three images here. Let's say I'm going to go in and now I'm going to assign these values. So I'm going to assign all of these images an interior design keyword. So interior design is then added to these images. And you can see up here that it doesn't actually contain, it has already some AI keywords added. You can see architecture, building, house, and train vehicle that are italicized are sort of already keywords that exist in this image. And interior design is unitalicized, and you can see that it is represented there. And let's say I'll add this one. I'll add early 20th century. And by doing that, it's going to add now a sub keyword within interior design underneath of it. If I go to my next image and I click on mid-century, you can see that that is now represented in this image in particular. Let's go back to this one. Oops. And then I'll take my third image here and let's say, well, let's just add the contemporary. Actually, let's just add this one instead. So you can see that contemporary has been added. Note that it looks like I still need to add the interior design one here. So I have three images here. One has interior design and early 20th century. One has interior design in mid-century, and then one has interior design in contemporary. And by doing this, I've created a quick keyword sets that I can now edit as well. So if I wanted to edit this in particular, this interior design set, I would just click on this and click on edit quick keywords. And then I can bring up which keyword set I wanted to edit, which in this case is interior design. But if I wanted to edit, birds or whatever, I could do that. So this list goes on and on. So keywords, first and foremost, can be predicated on AI keywords. So if you like the AI keywords that the ACDSee has created for you, you can start the process of adding your own keywords using those. Secondly, keywords can be added manually, and they can be added in such a format that creates a hierarchy. Creating hierarchies can be best made using this quick keywords set function, because it enables us to establish quick hierarchies right here rather than having to right click on interior design, add new keyword, subcategory keyword within it, and then to create whole new ones predicated on whichever, we can do that all at the same time. And this workflow is entirely custom to what you're taking photos of. If you're somebody who does a lot of product photography, you're going to probably have new keyword sets based on what product photography you do, especially if it's like for a consumer market, or if it's for, say you're someone who does product photography of different forms of building for maybe it is for something like interior design. Maybe you do product photography for a company that sells extrusions, or for windows, or for whatever have you, right? Point is you can create a set of keywords that would then allow you to navigate to these files. So we've gone in and we've added these keywords, and basically the way that I would navigate to these keywords if I'd added tons and tons of images with this is I would navigate to my catalog window and I'd say, okay, well, I know what I'm looking for. Remember, I'm looking for interior design. And I can bring up my 4 images in this case that have interior design added. And then on top of that too, I can add, I can look at my contemporary, my early 20th century, and my mid-century images correspondingly. So that's really powerful, right? Then if I'm going through my folders and editing these images as I'm going through my folders, I'm adding this content. Okay, let's shift gears. That kind of covers keywords broadly. The one thing that I should mention, right, that keywords can do that categories cannot, is keywords have the ability to, we can add keywords to an IPTC field. So this is something that I explain a lot, and I'm going to explain again just so people understand. So ACDSee metadata, the ones that I've described, remember I listed them here. Pardon me. Categories, notes, keywords, color labels, authors, dates, ratings, captions, and face data. This information is proprietary to ACDSee. And what this means is that if you were to send somebody this photo, okay, this photo in particular of our train here, our tram or whatever, they're not going to be able to see the keywords that you've added to this image. They're not going to be able to say the ratings. They're not going to be able to see the labels. They're not going to be able to see any of this information because ACDSee is the viewer method for that information. So a question then arises, what information can be added to a photo that others can see, right? Provided that I send an image. There are 2 fields that users can see that don't have ACDSee. They're located in the properties panel, the same way that we go about organizing. Just down at the bottom here, there's a little tab next to file organize called metadata. IPTC is a series of general metadata additions that are non-proprietary, meaning everyone should be able to see this provided they know how to open up a file and showcase this information. IPTC generally refers to sort of copyright, and EXIF, provided that you're working with an actual camera and not just using images like this, that are taken off the internet, in this case, stock photography, your EXIF should already be filled out for you because your EXIF contains shutter speed, your ISO, your f-stop, that sort of information, the make and model of your camera. So this information, provided you're taking raw photography or you're taking images, JPEGs, this will already be filled in when you go to take your images. But it's very likely that your IPTC isn't. So things like creator, job title, address, city, state, province, copyright notice, intellectual genre, blah, 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 blah. This information is probably not going to be filled out. You can see that whoever took this stock photography image actually did add some IPTC field. They added some information about where it was taken. It looks like it was taken in Turkey. Pardon me. So IPTC is visible to others. The question that often comes up is, hey, how do I take these keywords that I've added to this image and how do I move them into the keyword field right here in the metadata function here. This IPTC keyword field can be seen by someone who doesn't have ACDSee. However, when I go to fill out this field with my ACDSee metadata, it's going to lose the hierarchy that I've established. In essence, it's going to flatten all those things. So what I mean by that is the fact that this has interior design in mid-century, those things are not going to be seen like they are in ACDSee as containing a hierarchy, right? They're just going to be flattened. So interior design will have the same priority as mid-century. However, we can move these keywords to the IPTC field. So I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, we can do this by, yes, we do this by right-clicking on our image here. And if I go to metadata, there it is. So I can embed keywords to IPTC. So if I do that, it's going to fulfill that requirement. It's going to add these. And now these keywords exist not only within ACDSee, but also within the keyword panel here. Can everybody see that? This is like a hugely powerful tool that ACDSee can now move these into the keywords panel without us having to, manually enter them, one by one. Okay, there's another aspect of this that we should see. So how is this visualized? Let's find this file and visualize this for us. So I'm going to navigate to pictures. What am I looking at? It was the train photo. If keywords, you can add both actually, but keywords is the main one we're talking about right now. So I'm glad you think that's cool, Daniel. Here we go. I'll go to landscape and we'll find this same image. I forget the name of it. It's landscape 003. So it means that it's this one. So I've found my image. So here's the image in ACDSee and here's the image in my file explorer. Let's right click on this image. And what we're going to do is we're going to navigate down to properties. Should be at the bottom here. And by doing that, I can see details. So here's how those keywords are visualized in on a PC. You can see it right here. They're listed under something called tags. So interior design, mid-century train vehicle is listed here. So it's moved from the keywords panel in the IPTC to essentially how keywords are represented here. You can also see some general information about the image, but you can see that all of this EXIF data, the camera maker, the f-stop, the exposure time, the make and model of the camera, all of this information is missing. And then it shows the location on my hard drive that it is, etc. So this is how we would go through the process of adding our proprietary keywords that we create in ACDSee and then embedding them within the file so they're now visible to non-ACDSee users. Now, if you are using ACDSee and you're sending an image to another user that has ACDSee, you really only need to do one thing, and that would be to embed the metadata. So I would embed metadata. So metadata, again, is all of the qualities that I've listed, the rating, the label, the keywords that we've added. You can tell that an image has pending metadata when there's this little film reel icon that pops up on our image here. And I can showcase what this looks like when we add metadata. So if we go back to our pictures folder, let's find an image that doesn't have any metadata. Sure. So all of these images don't have that pending icon. So if we're to take the 4 of these images, let's give them a rating of 4. Let's give them a label of green, and you can see that that icon appears. Alternatively, if we were to add, let's add just like a landscape nature. We'll add a keyword to this as well. So these images now have pending metadata, and they contain new metadata information. So they have a rating now, they have a keyword, and they have a label. To embed metadata, I would simply right-click my image, I would go to metadata, and I would embed ACDSee metadata. And then it would say, do you want to embed it in these 5 files? And we do. So this is also something that by default is completed when you try to leave ACDSee. It'll ask you to embed the metadata that you've added or changed to your files. But you can also force embed metadata by doing exactly what I did there, which is navigating to metadata and embedding it. Okay, so what does this do? Well, what this does is it adds the metadata to the file, right? And then from here, what we can do is 2 things. First and foremost, we can send it to someone else. And now that they can take that metadata and they can reconstruct that metadata in their ACDSee. For example, what that would look like is, hey, I have these files that my friend sent me, and they have metadata that I want on them. What I would do is I would navigate to tools, database, and catalog files. So what this would do is it would catalog those keywords for me. I think the ratings and labels would just be visible right away. But if I wanted to reconstruct those keywords, I could do it that way. Importantly, as long as we're embedding our metadata in our images, if I ever had an issue with my database, or my database failed, or I lost these keywords and categories in because they were associated with my database, as long as I was embedding my files, I could also use the catalog files window to reproduce all of those keywords and categories that I created. And you can see here what can be imported from the files is first and foremost EXF and IPTC metadata, but also ACDSee metadata, including categories, keywords, tagged, and collections. I can also import face data. So if I'd added some in people mode, I can do that as well, which we'll be talking about in the next workshop. Okay, so that covers pretty much everything there is to know about keywords, AI keywords, and then we briefly took a little stop to talk about why IPTC matters and how we add our ACDSee keywords to our IPTC field. So that other people can view the keywords that we've added to the image if necessary. Lastly, we just talked about a little bit about embedding a metadata because it coincides very nicely with what we were talking about with IPTC. So categories are very similar in that, and the question is always, how are categories different from keywords? So categories are the exact same thing you'd expect as the keyword window, in that we have a set of broad level categories here that I think are added by default with ACDSee. So I think people, places, various, and albums are all default. And then I have the ability to add new category sets. So same thing, again, it would be a top level way of adding categories. Keep in mind that same hierarchy structure exists for categories. So this would enable me to create hierarchical categories. So let's create a quick category right now. Let's call this category, what would be something really broad that would be good for this? Let's add a category called vacation. I have one under wildlife. So you know what, you're right. Let's use that one. So we have a category by the name of wildlife here. And let's just say this. We want our category, instead of them being predicated on specific keywords, because we already have a hierarchy structure for that, let's just create wildlife photos under different years. So these are the wildlife photos I took in 2023. These are the wildlife photos I took in 2024 and 2022. Okay. And then we'll title this, we're going to call this category set wildlife. So when I click OK, it's going to create it for me. And then I already have the wildlife set here. So if I go and click 2022, you can see that the same thing happens here Boom. I've added this wildlife photo, and unfortunately I've added it to the same image here. So let's unclick these. But if I go to this next photo here and this next photo here, I've got all three of these have wildlife photos, and some of them have years in this case. Okay. So you're seeing the exact same thing I did with keywords, right? Exactly the same thing. So if I go to catalog and I go to, in this case, categories, not keywords, same thing. Once again, if I go to wildlife, there they are. Those are all my wildlife images. Then there's 2022, 2023, and 2024, the ones that I've added. Note that when we add a category to an image here, let's see if I can do that. Let's add a category to an image that doesn't have one. These don't have categories. So let's add a category. So right now I have a bunch of images that have the wildlife category. You can see them right there. And then some of them have years underneath of it. These ones don't have a category. So we'll add a category to these shortly. But one of the things that's maybe something that's very important to understand about categories that keywords don't do is that you cannot filter with keywords, but you can filter with categories. Okay. So under the filter window, I can create a search function that corresponds to a certain quality. So right now I'm searching generally, right? Like when I open up a folder, like for example, birds, all of these images come up, right? When I look at a keyword, all of these images come up, right? But if I'm using the filter function, right, I am then filtering predicated on one more quality. So let's navigate back to the birds folder. And this time I'm going to filter with wildlife, remembering that these images contain the wildlife category and these images do not contain that. So if I filter using this category, you'll see that there's those images of the whales and bears will then disappear because they don't have that filter applied, right? They do not have that category. So this function is the filter function is then only corresponds to the category functionality. So I can't filter. I can only filter with no keywords, but I can't filter with a specific keyword in mind. I can, however, filter with a specific category in mind, right? Same goes for like ratings and labels. Like if I want to say, hey, I'm looking within my birds folder or I'm looking within my birds keyword, but I'm only looking at rating of 5, right? Whereas this time I'm looking in the birds folder, but I'm filtering wildlife. Watch what happens when I look at a new keyword. So let's close my categories altogether. Let's look under people, right? I have a people one, or no, I have a clothing one. Yeah. So if I look under clothing, right? Well, there's nothing in here. Why would there not be anything in here? Well, there's nothing in here because there's no clothing photos that contain a category of wildlife because this filter is still active. I could see this filter is active because of this gray bar that appears up at the top. Hugely important distinction between keywords and categories is this ability to apply an active filter. So people always ask, what's the difference between categories and keywords because they work so similarly? The two differences are keywords can be predicated on AI keywords, so the ones that ACDSee creates. And they have some functionality when it comes to being applied to IPTC. Keywords, they don't really have as robust, categories rather, they don't really have as a robust functionality when it comes to AI. There's no real way to create an AI category. But the one thing that they do have that benefits for them is that every category you create can be applied as an active filter in a way that a keyword can't. So that sort of gives you a major distinction between those two functionalities. Is there anything else Does Photo Studio for Mac have AI keywords? I don't believe it does. That's a great question, Chuck. I am sort of like the PC guy at ACDC. I'm not the Mac guy. That would be something to ask the developers in the uh in our the ACDC Connect. There's a little panel for asking questions to the developers, and you could find an answer to that right away. The other thing too is actually if we go to the product page, you may be able to find it out. One sec. ACDSee. Great question. Let's see if products, the Mac contains, yeah, it'd be a damn photo software. And then it would be for Mac. Let's find out whether or not it has the AI keywords. Overview, oh, features. That's what we want. AI facial recognition. But does it have AI keywords? I don't believe it has AI keywords yet. The AI, so our Mac product typically is like one release behind our PC functionality because there was a prolonged period where we weren't developing our Mac software and we're slowly getting it up to speed with our PC product. But if I remember correctly, in our PC product, we had we had released our face software prior to our AI keywords. So it's possible that that is going to be something that is added in a new edition of the Mac software when it's released. But it looks like at the current juncture, it just has AI face recognition, but it probably doesn't have the AI keywords functionality yet. That would be my guess. If you want the final word on that, I would just ask the developers in the Connect page. Does anyone else have any other questions? Is there anything else someone wants me to like go over again, or is there anything that people are unclear on? That covers pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. So basically, broadly, I taught you how to use not only keywords and categories. We also talked about AI keywords. We talked about the sort of differences between keywords and categories, how that's sort of interpreted in ACDSee. Yeah. And then we also talked about IPTC metadata and sort of proprietary and non-proprietary metadata. Yeah, kind of open to questions now. Yeah, okay. Alan asked how to get keywords, etc., from previous version into current. Okay, so here's your images, Alan. What you're gonna do. Daniel, so glad. Keep in mind, I'm gonna upload this to YouTube, so you haven't missed anything. You can rewatch it there as well. Alan's question is, how do I get keywords, etc., from previous version into current? Okay, so you're choosing to not um, convert your old database. So that would be method number one. Alan, you're deciding that you don't like your old database. You like some of your keywords and your hierarchies and that sort of thing, but you don't want to use your old database for whatever reason. Okay. So what would be involved was, first of all, you need to know this. You need to know that your images have you've embedded your metadata. Because if you're not using your old database and you have not embedded your metadata in your previous version, you are out of luck. Okay, totally out of luck. You need to have done one of those two things. However, if you don't want to use your old database and you have embedded metadata in your file as you've been going through, all you would do is click on your images that you want to extract your metadata from. You go to Tools, Database, Catalog Files. Then you would catalog ACDSee metadata, this check button right here, including categories, keywords, tagged, and collections. You'd click Start, and ACDSee would then produce a keyword list predicated on whatever has been embedded. And that's all you need to do. Sorry, I'm confused on embedding. Where is the data being embedded to? The database into the IPTC fields? No. Those are two different things. So when you add information to your file, for example, let's say I'm going to add a label to the first 7 images in my listing here. when I add that label, ACDSee is going to remember that I've added that label to the database. Okay. So that label is controlled and considered in the database. It's there. Okay. Your database is created upon installation of your software. It already exists. There's no such thing as not having a database. So you already have one. This information can be embedded within the file. Embedding it within the file basically allows us to catalog that image, provided that I don't have a previous database that I want to work off of. So what Alan asked is, how do I get my keywords, etc., for my previous version into current? Well, in Alan's case, he doesn't have a database that he wants to convert. So what he wants to do is he wants to take embedded metadata. So again, we would embed metadata by right-clicking and going embed ACDSee metadata. And when I do this, this little embed metadata icon that appears right here will disappear because that now has been written to the file. So I've written this information to the file. The pending metadata icon, it disappears. And now in the future, when I have a new version of ACDSee, and again, I don't want to reconstruct my old database, I'm not interested in that. All I would do is reconstruct my keywords or labels or ratings or whatever by navigating to database and catalog files. So what you're asking is in regards to IPTC. Keep in mind that IPTC is not proprietary. It has nothing to do with our database. It has nothing to do with ACDSee metadata at all. IPTC and EXIF fields are just general metadata that is visible to any person. This is quick and easy to add. This is non-proprietary, has nothing to do with the functionality of ACDSee. All ACDSee does is provide a platform for you to enter these values. Okay. Does that make sense, Mark? Awesome. The reason why you might have been confused is because earlier we were talking about taking keywords that we've created in ACDSee, that is ACDSee metadata, and moving it to the IPTC field. And the reason why we did this is because we wanted to take our beautiful keywords, the hundreds and hundreds of keywords that we've added to a single image, and just fill this keyword column so that someone else can see that this image has been tagged accordingly or has these keywords in it. But this is very different than what the question that Alan asked is, oh, how do I get my keywords from my images from the previous version of my, of the software that I was using? Okay, Chuck asked, is it possible to take a list of categories and make them keywords? Oh, good question. Is it possible to take a list of categories and make them keywords? Yeah, I think so. Okay, let's look at this. I think it works the same way. Let's add a category to these images. So they already all have one. So they all have the fashion. Well, that makes sense. They're in my people folder here. Okay, so let's give them a people and fashion category. Okay, you can see that I've done that, Chuck. Let's go back to our metadata field where the keywords are. And let's take these images. I'll right click on them and I'm going to go to metadata. Oh, there it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those categories and I'm going to click on embed, categories to IPTC, not keywords. So same thing, just one lower. And I think if I do this, what this should do, Chuck, is add people and fashion to the IPTC field. Let's see if it works. Doesn't look like it has worked. Why would that be? Are they not applied? No, they are applied. Okay. Peculiar. Let's see. Let's try it again. Maybe this is a bug. So then I have embed AI keywords. No, I don't want that. Import IPTC. No, yeah, that's different. Embed categories to IPTC. Yeah, I think that might be a bug because that should probably work. I'm gonna inquire about that because that's quite strange. But it hypothetically speaking, Chuck, if I feel like there's a bug that I found. Hypothetically speaking, that's how that should work though. I feel like yeah. What about adding categories a list as ACDC keywords? What about adding category list as ACDC keywords? Oh, like taking your categories and turning them into keywords? I don't know about that. Let me think. Um, yeah, no, I understand. So how would you move something like this to? Is there any way to shift them into a different format? Let's see. Good question. Okay. Oh, maybe. Oh, you know what? Do I need to embed it in order for it to be moved to IPTC? That could be it, eh? Because I didn't embed that information. Let's try moving it. Okay, no. Still a bug. Never mind. Sorry. Okay. I don't know if that's possible. Tools, metadata, database. Is there a way to move your categories to your keywords? What if I take my oh no, that doesn't work here. Plus, no. Options. Mm-mm. What if I drag and drop? Does this work? Let's take wildlife and drag it. See what happens. You're copying a category to keywords. Subcategories of this category will also be copied. Any files. Okay, yeah. Looks like you have to drag and drop it in the catalog window here. Not ideal, but okay, so let's make an let's take do I have a various here? No, I don't have a various. Great. I'm gonna take various and drag it and drop it into keywords. Says you are copying a category to keywords. Subcategories of this keyword will also be copied. Any files assigned to these categories will be assigned to the new keywords. So anything that has a various will be applied to the keyword. And then I'll click yes. And various should appear here. Uh, Let's try this again. Oh. Oh, it's been added to that. Oh, it's just because I hovered over that one in particular. Interesting. What if I want to add this as a general keyword? Oh, I see. I see. Okay, okay, okay. I figured this out. Sorry, it took a moment. Let me drag and drop. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So, who asked this question? Chuck. Okay. Chuck, here's how this works. Okay. If you want to if you drag and drop a category and its corresponding subcategories directly above your keyword panel here where it says keyword, it's going to add it as a new keyword. Okay. If you drag and drop various to a specific one, like I'm going to drag and drop it under Astro. By doing that, it's going to add it as a sub keyword. Do you see that? So if you want it as a new keyword, just drag it and drop it to the actual bar itself. Otherwise, drag it into the subsection here. Hopefully that makes sense. I literally learned that for the first time just now. I didn't know you could do that.